Howdy home buyers, do you know what an appraisal waiver is? I think you should, especially if you're going to be buying a home in the next 3 to 5 years. And a news bulletin came across my desk this week that makes it very timely to talk about appraisal waivers in our thought-provoking segment. So I'm going to read it to you because there's a few acronyms and things you got to know in order for us to talk about why this is a good or a bad thing for the real estate industry. So on December 10th, NAR, National Association of Realtors, issued a comment letter to the Federal Housing Finance Agency asking them to halt the recently announced expansion of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's appraisal waiver program in lieu of further analysis and public input. NAR policy supports independent valuations of real property performed by state credentialed appraisers as best practice. However, in some low-risk situations, the amount of existing data and technological advances have led to the offer of appraisal waivers. When the risk level prompts the GSEs, that is a government-sponsored enterprise, so Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, when the risk level prompts the GSEs to require verification of that data, they are now offering inspection-based waivers, where a property data collection is gathered and submitted to the GSEs. One more paragraph. The expansion of these programs, slated to begin on January 1st, that's what makes this timely, raises the eligibility of these products from 80% loan to value, meaning a borrower is putting down 20% on the loan they're seeking. So raises the eligibility from 80 to 90% LTV for appraisal waivers with no property data collection, and 97% LTV for inspection-based appraisal waivers. Okay, so let's talk about this in a couple different perspectives. So on the individual level first, when they talk about somebody being a low-risk loan candidate, this would mean a person or a household, right, a husband and wife, seeking a loan. They are not borrowing more than they should from a debt-to-income perspective. They have a great credit history that shows that they are responsible borrowers. And in some instances, if they're putting down 20%, right, so they're very invested into this home purchase, they'll get what's known as an appraisal waiver. So in that situation, you are a responsible borrower based on your credit history. You're invested into it, and so you're not very risky in terms of potentially defaulting on this loan. And if you're also not borrowing a whole lot of money, then I think obviously you manage your finances well. If we don't want an appraisal and as a necessity, right, to underwrite the loan, then yeah, that's probably a good thing, especially if the lender will pass that savings on to you. Now, here's another rub here though, right, is that the appraisal contingency is a contract term. So while you may not need it for the loan, I think it's really important that you consider your options under the contract. You may not need it to get a loan on the house, but you may want to get that appraisal anyway because you're concerned about overpaying for the house. So that's an instance where, personal responsibility is a good thing, right? You've decided to write this contract. Now, if you have the appraisal protection within the contract and you wish to exercise that, then don't take the appraisal waiver. But if you feel really good about the purchase, about what you're paying for it and everything else, then sure, maybe accept the appraisal waiver, especially if it's going to save you some money in the underwriting process. So that's one perspective, right? The individual circumstances. Now, from a larger perspective, like our real estate system and the real estate industry, I have some concerns about this appraisal waiver program. When you talk about a 97% LTV, that means only 3% down payment some borrowers are putting into this transaction. That's also a first-time home buyer that's eligible for a 97% loan. So their understanding of what they're getting themselves into is probably not the same as somebody who has bought a home before and can put down 20% into the purchase, right? And so this expansion that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are extending to those 97% loan borrowers is probably not a good thing, right? They probably need to have an individual based appraisal done and not just this property data collection. I've been through that with some buyers before. The property data collection is basically, we have an algorithm online, but maybe the house was built 30 years ago, it's never sold, and we want to make sure that the information we can find online is accurate. So what they'll do is send any Joe Blow to go take pictures, make sure that the ceiling's not caving in and things of this nature. That's just very, very different than an appraisal, right? And an opinion of value that a state credentialed appraiser can give. All right, so in that instance, and then think more broadly about what this says, that we trust the algorithms online about what these properties might be worth. Okay, that could get us into a world of trouble, right? If we're all depending on the Zestimate to understand what property values are and should be, that's probably not a good thing to be setting up our futures, is it? So two kind of divergent perspectives there, that at the individual level, if you're offered this and you feel good about it, make sure you're weighing that against your rights within the contract, okay? And then NAR's position on this, that it's probably not wise to extend this appraisal waiver program to 97% loan candidates. Thought-provoking topic, right? It says a lot about where we are with technology and how our industry could be kind of maybe deregulating some things in order to free up more home sales. Is that a good or a bad idea? Kind of depends on your situation, doesn't it? So, appraisal waivers, that's our thought-provoking topic for the day. Reach out if you have questions about your circumstances, 901-497-5615. Thank you so much. Take care.